Assalamualaikum. Welcome to the course of your Technical and Highway Level 3. Hi and welcome everyone. How are you today? I hope all of you are fine. I am Siti Zuraifa, your online tutor. Alright, today we will continue our lesson for experiment, which is Aggregate Impact Value Test. Please enter to proceed.
Before we proceed with the lesson, let me tell you about the learning outcomes of this topic. First, student able to carry out the experiment for impact test value aggregate. Second, student able to handle the given task efficiently. Third, student able to identify the data needed. Lastly, student able to accomplish the task within a given time frame with a complete report. The apparatus used for this testing are Aggregate Impact Test Machine according to the British Standard 812, Part 112-1990. BS sieves of aperture sizes, 14 mm, 10 mm, 2.36 mm. Cylindrical metal measure with an internal diameter of 75 mm and an internal depth of 50 mm. A straight metal tamping rod, 10 mm diameter, 230 mm long rounded at one end. A balance of capacity not less than 500 grams and accurate to 0.1 grams. A bristle brush. A set of tray. A trowel. In Malaysia, BS 812 Part 112 year 1990 are used as references. The standard amount of impact is produced by a known weight, that is a steel cylinder, falling a set height, a prescribed number of times, onto an amount of aggregate of standard size and weight retained in a mold. Aggregate impact values, AVs, below 10 are regarded as strong, and AVs above 35 would normally be regarded as too weak for use in road surfaces. Aggregate impact values and aggregate crushing values are often numerically very similar, and indicate similar aggregate strength properties. Then, the aggregate impact value gives a relative measure of the resistance of an aggregate to sudden shock or impact, which in some aggregates differs from its resistance to a slowly applied compressive load. The apparatus consists of a steel test mold with a falling hammer as shown in figure. The hammer slides freely between vertical guides so arranged that the lower part of the hammer is above and concentric with the mold. Now, I would like to explain about the procedure of impact test value aggregate. Step 1. Take coarse aggregate in a pan and measure it to 350 gram using the weight balance. It shall be clean and dry, washed if necessary, but it must not be dried for longer 4 hours nor at a temperature higher than 110 degrees Celsius. Step 2. Arrange the sieves in the decreasing order of their size. Place the pan at the bottom and then add weight quantity of coarse aggregate. The material used is aggregate passing a 14 mm sieve and retained on a 10 mm sieve. Step 3. Place the set of sieves in the mechanical shaker. Sieves the material around 10 minutes. Step 4. Collect the coarse aggregate retained on 10.0 mm sieve in separate container. It means the material used is aggregate passing a 14 mm sieve and retained on a 10 mm sieve. Step 5. Note down the empty weight cylinder W1G, then fill the cylinder with the aggregates retained on 10.0 mm sieve in 3 layers. Step 6. Note down the weight of the cylinder with aggregate W2G. Each layer shall be tamped 25 times with a 10 mm rounded in tamping rod by allowing the tamping rod to fall freely from a height of about 50 mm above the surface of the aggregate and the blows being evenly distributed over the surface. Remove, by rolling the tamping rod across and in contact with the top of the container, any aggregate which impedes its progress. aggregate being added to fill any obvious depressions. Weight the mass of aggregate in the cylindrical metal container, W2. Determine the mass of the uncrushed sample alone as W3, in which W3 equals W2, W1. Step 7. Place the cylinder in the setup. Fix and secure the cylindrical metal container containing the whole of the test sample in it in position on the base of the machine. The test sample is subjected to 15 blows of the hammer dropping 381 mm, each being delivered at an interval not less than 1 second. Release the hammer in the order to apply the impact load. Step 8. Transfer the aggregate to the sieve, 2.36 mm, then place it in the mechanical shaker. Unsecure the cylindrical metal container containing the whole of the crushed test sample and weight them. Determine the mass of the crushed sample, M1. Sieve the whole of the sample in the tray on the 2.36 mm BS test sieve until no further significant amount passes in 3 minutes.